one program, one version seems to be advantageous, at first glance, but when you look at it again, it is not so good. So do we understand the concept of ADT, abstract data type, and why it is useful? All it means is basically what you have to do is to draw a line in the program. Okay, and I don't mean a line in terms of graphics line. By means of line, I'm saying, yes. So when you write a program, okay, let's say this is your entire program. You draw a line, and you say everything from here on is called, quote unquote, the consumer, and everything about this line is the non-consumer. You can call it the producer or whatever you want to call that. Okay? It's only this portion that needs to understand exactly how you define a record, a struct, or a class. Okay? So this portion has to know exactly how you represent a coordinate in this case. But everything after that does not need to understand that. Okay? So you have to basically say, in the consumer part of this program, do not access the structure of a record directly, ever. Okay? If you can keep that, if you have the discipline to do that throughout the entire program, that means that you can change everything up here, but there will be no changes to the rest of the program. Okay? So this part is basically the ADT portion, and this is the consumer part that utilizes the ADT definitions. Is that okay so far with the concept? It's basically in terms of TV or display technology. This is Samsung. They have to understand the latest and greatest display technology, LEDs, OLED, display technologies and whatnot. This is your consumer. They don't have to understand anything other than how to work the remote control. Okay? So remember the analogy between ADT programming and consumer electronics. Okay? Are there any questions at this point? Now, I do have to warn you that many of these things that we talk about in this class, the benefit is not going to be visible or obvious when you do homework assignments for all the other classes. The longest program you will write at ARC or even at a 4-year university will probably approach 1,000 lines in the worst case. Okay? In a 1,000-line program, none of this is going to become an issue because you don't have a boss to tell you, oh, by the way, after writing 50,000 lines, I want to switch the data representation from XY to polar. Okay? That's not going to happen to your homework assignments because one semester is only, 3 months. Okay? On the other hand, when you go out there to become a professional programmer, that happens all the time. Okay? Because you have to extend a program to do more, and a lot of times in order to change the program to do more, you have to change the way data is represented. In other words, you have to change the record definition itself. As a result of that, if you did not do ADT programming, you will have to modify a lot of the lines of the program than if you did use the ADT method. Is that okay? Now, the last point I want to point out before the end of this class is ADT is not a programming language feature. Okay, you will find no programming language that tells, oh, we have ADT. That's not a programming feature. It is a discipline. It is how you utilize the features of a programming language, or the lack of that, or basically abusing language features. In other words, this line is not enforced by the programming language. C has no way to enforce that. Java has no way to enforce that. It is up to you, the programmer, to basically say, okay, I have to make sure that every code beyond this line, will not try to access the inside structure of a record definition. It is up to the programmer to make sure that this line is there. Are we doing okay so far with the concept of that? Now, because it is a programming discipline and not a programming language concept, you can use the same concept even in terms of assembly language programming. Okay? Because it is just an idea. It is how you see things, and it's not relying on a programming language, a compiler or an interpreter to enforce that. All right? So we'll call this the end. Call this the end of today's lecture. Go ahead and start with your homework assignment. It is due in a week, but if you have questions, bring it on Thursday.